Just days ago, Pakistan dared to cross the line again with another cowardly act of terrorism. But this time, our response was different. It was precise, calculated, and devastating. But at the heart of that response was a system that saw them coming from miles away, long before they even knew we are locked in. The S-400, India's invisible shield, the reason why our skies stayed safe, the reason why our forces could struck with surgical precision and return back with victory. But how did India get S-400? Who was the man who saw its value before anyone else? Why did the world, including the US, try to stop us from getting that? How did India prove that our sovereignty is not up for negotiation? This is not just a story of a missile system. This is a story of vision, defiance, and national pride. This is the story of Manohar Parrikar Sir. Now, no one needs an intro on who Manohar Parrikar Sir is. His legacy still lives on. He is not just any other flashy politician. He is a man who wears sandals and a simple shirt. He is a technocrat. He is an alumnus of the IIT Bombay, then he was the Chief Minister of Goa, and from 2014 to 17, he was a Defense Minister too. He wore no uniform, but he served like a soldier. Now, let us talk about where the negotiations of the talk for S-400 started and how it came into picture. In 2016, when the world was busy with other headlines, Manohar Parrikar Sir was in a mission. He consulted top technocrats, engineers, defense experts, and knew where our air defenses lacked, or how we can expand it, or how to make it better. And the answer was none other than the S-400, a Russian defense hardware. Now, S-400 is very much economical because we could save almost around 49,300 crores in the coming decade instead of spending this much money on medium or short range missiles. Like I said before, S-400 is a Russian military hardware and we had to buy it from Russia. And we strengthened our Indo-Russian defense ties and we had started the talk and negotiation for that. But right at that time, we had started facing pressures from US and the rest of the world. In 2017 comes the CAATSA Act, CAATSA, Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. Now what is sanction? Everybody knows, freezing bank accounts, etc. etc. Who are America's adversaries? Iran, North Korea, and Russia, namely. So if you would go for any deals with all these, US could punish you with a sanction. That's basically a very simple version of it. But India didn't bend after seeing the CAATSA Act. CAATSA came into power in 2017, but by that time, the groundworks, the political groundwork, the technical groundwork, and the financial groundwork for S-400 has already been done. India was sanction-proof from this CAATSA because we had a very streamlined procurement ratio. We cut the red tapes. We had associated with indigenous defense productions, so that even if we get sanctioned, we'll be in a better off position. But while learning about all these, I had a question in my mind that why does US gets to order us around? Why does US get an upper hand? I think all of us know that, but it's mostly because US have control over global finances like the SWIFT, IMF, and the World Bank. They also have a very huge influence over technology and trade. Also, they have military alliances like the NATO, but India is not one of US's military alliance. We're a sovereign nation. We're not in his camp or her camp. And as we all know, USD or the US dollar is a global currency. So US do get an upper hand. India, as a sovereign nation, we make our decisions based on our national security and not because some other foreign country forces us to. That is very much clear after the S-400 deal, and in the recent times we've seen that pattern. And we're not in anyone's camp. We're not pro-America or pro-Russia, we're just pro-India. So that, and the example is we buy Rafales from France We buy S-400 from Russia, we buy drones from US, and we make Tejas at home. So we're not in anyone's camp, and India has always followed a rule that you do what you must and we'll do what we must. And that's why we have not bent to the CAATSA rules at all. While we faced pressures from Washington and from many top officials, about which I'll be talking on later on, that India has cited its strategic autonomy. Our dependence on Russian defense system was 70%, so we couldn't just repeal it. Not just that, we were at very high essentiality of S-400. We are literally packed between Pakistan and China. US sees India as a key ally against China. In Malayalam, we have a quote that Shatru and Shatru is Mitram. So that is, enemy's enemy is a friend. So that is the reason, that's one of the major reasons, if you ask me, that they really do see us as a key ally against China. And not just that, there was bipartisan voices. The US Congress has asked for a waiver for us. Now, coming to the pressures we faced from the US and the rest of the world, but mainly US, is that the Washington argued that buying S-400 would compromise the security of US sanctioned defense equipments like the C-17 Globemaster, the Apache helicopter, and P-81 surveillance aircraft. US officers, including the former State Secretary Mike Pompeo and the Defense Secretary James Mattis, had multiple rounds of talks with their Indian counterparts asking us to reconsider the deal with Russia. But we did not fold to any of these pressures. At the end, in 2018, we signed the deal for S-400. We all know what S-400 is, but every time I learned or heard about S-400 in TV, the another thing which came to my mind is Iron Dome, Israel's Iron Dome. Because when the Israel-Palestine conflict was going on, it still is, but still, the media portrayed how amazing of a system Iron Dome is, right? So I was always fascinated by Iron Dome, but to be very honest, I didn't know S-400 was even better than Iron Dome, because the S-400, which is a Russian military hardware, is a long-range air defense system, whereas Iron Dome is short-ranged. Our range, S-400's range, is up to 400 kilometers and up to 30 kilometer altitude, whereas Iron Dome is around 70 kilometers. It's short-range, like I said. And S-400 can target fighter jets, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and even stealth aircrafts. But Iron Dome can only target around rockets and shells. And one of my favorite factor about S-400 is that it's highly mobile. It's truck mounted, whereas Iron Dome is more or less static, we can say. And the coverage is that we can protect large strategic area like a whole, like entire cities or borders, whereas Iron Dome can only protect smaller bases like a city or a military base. So it's actually a very proud moment for me, because I've always been a fan of Iron Dome, and knowing that we have a Sudarshan Chakra at home feels really good. Talking about Parrikar Sir as the visionary. See, it's 2025 now. He started the talks and negotiations for S-400 in 2015, a decade earlier, the man who saw it coming. Also, one of my favorite facts about Manohar Parrikar Sir is my favorite defense minister, no doubt, because Uri surgical strike, right? We cannot talk about Uri, the first cross-border surgical strike, without talking about Manohar Parrikar Sir, because he was a man, a visionary, and a mastermind behind it. He's not, like I said, he does not work in front of camera, he works in war rooms, and we've seen how successful of a surgical strike Uri is. A very precise, a very first cross-border surgical strike with 0 Indian casualties. And we counted almost dozens of terrorists there with 0 Indian casualties. Imagine the capabilities of that, of our Sudarshan Chakra. It can track 160 targets and engage 72 with missiles capable of striking up to 400 kilometer range and 30 kilometer altitude. How cool is that? Also, I would like to talk about a book which gave me very much insights about the Uri surgical strike. It is called Securing India the Modi Way by Nitin A. Gokhale, and Manohar Parrikar Sir has written an endorsement or a blurb at the end of the book, which I would like to read. This book documents in detail some of the fundamental changes that are being ushered in by the Prime Minister, his government's efforts to strengthen our military and the role of our armed forces and intelligence agencies in making India secure. This is one of the best books if you would want to know about the insights. I read this in 2018 or something. It was released in 2017, around that time. At the end, I would like to end by saying that he didn't seek credit, he built capacity. From the shadow of policy, Manohar Parrikar Sir shaped the future of Indian defense. Today, every time an S-400 tracks an enemy, it carries his signature, silent, sharp, and sovereign. Thank you and Jai Hind.